trauma almost made me leave the church completely. I've been with my church now for a little over 5 years. I only know this because we celebrated our 5-year anniversary just last weekend, but I had joined up with my church about 6 months before they actually launched. See, this allowed me to plug into community and create relationships so much more easily than it was to join a church that's been around for years and years and years, because everyone was new. No one had their group yet. No one had their clique yet. No one had little pockets of people that you had to come into, get to know the whole group and figure it out because they've been friends for years. And it was nice because you weren't necessarily plugging into a place to serve within the community. You were looking to create areas to serve. So anytime that you joined a group that was serving in some area of the church, it was so easy because everyone was brand new. Even the leaders were brand new. So I was able to develop this great community of people that were all going after the same thing. We all shared the same values and we were all there to pursue Jesus. But through that, we built great relationships with each other. But the truth is, the longer that you spend around someone or some group of people, the greater the opportunity becomes for them to be able to hurt you. And this is that story. So I just realized that I'm going the wrong way. I'm on the wrong path. I was trying to get to this waterfall out here in Austin on one of the green belts, but I got on the wrong path. So I am turning around and going back. I probably didn't pick the best time to do this either, because it's literally the hottest part of the day. It's 3 o'clock and I think it's like 95 degrees. Whew. It's not as bad as it has been because it's really been about 105 degrees for about 4 months straight, but still hot. But it's allowing me to reflect on my experience within my community, because a couple years went by and all of a sudden I started not wanting to be there. I didn't even know why I didn't want to be there. All of a sudden I had this overwhelming feeling that I just didn't belong. When I started going to the church, I didn't feel like I had the community that I had when I started going there. And so my mind started to come up with all the reasons as to why. And you know, the first person I began to blame were the leaders there. I started to blame the leaders that were running this church, this pretty much baby church that's only been around for 2, maybe 3 years. And to me, it was all their fault. They had lost their vision of pursuing community and building relationships with people in a family. It was their fault for putting their focuses on things that I didn't necessarily agree with. It became the church's fault to why I felt every time I walked into the church, I didn't belong there. I wasn't welcome there. I didn't have the same close relationships or community that I originally had. And I proved it every step of the way with every conversation that I had with people. I made sure to confirm that it was not me, it was the church. And I began to confirm this with every single conversation that I had, that it was in fact the church's fault. Or was it? Was it really the church's fault that I didn't feel like I belonged there? Or was it me? Was I the problem? So I found my way into the Austin Botanical Gardens here in Austin, Texas. Honestly, I'm starting to think I should have started here because out on the trail was just straight heat. And this whole area is shadowed with beautiful trees and greenery. I mean, we have had record-breaking heat here in Austin this last summer, which hopefully we're gonna get like a cold winter. That's what they're saying. I don't know if I believe it or not. But it's a cool little spot, the Austin Botanical Gardens. It's kind of in the middle of downtown, so you're not completely out in nature. I mean, you have the highway right to the left, and they're setting up ACL, this massive music festival here in Austin, which I think like 100,000 people come to. So this is like the edge of the Botanical Gardens, but right over here is where they're setting up this giant music festival. But I'm gonna try and see if I can find some beautiful areas and finish telling you my story. So I started doing this thing called story work. It's where you figure out what story you're telling yourself anytime you respond to something. So for example, a story that you might be telling yourself is that someone breathes really deep, they go, then that means that they are mad. And you got this because you had an encounter maybe with a parental figure, a father figure, whatever it may be, where they did that when they were disappointed and upset at you. So now if anyone does it, you tell yourself this story that that person is mad at you. So I have been doing this story work, and I've learned it from Jake Hamilton, who does these things called the fights. So he's got like the fight night, fight weekend, sparring sessions. None of them are actually like physical things. It represents the fighting that people need to take, men especially need to take for their families, their marriages, and their children. The work that we have to do on ourselves. A lot of us tend to look at others, that they're the problem, that our spouse is the problem, that our children are the problem, rather than doing the work on fixing the trauma, the hurt, and the pain that we've experienced. So I've been going to some of his sessions, and I've been meeting with him one-on-one, which I highly recommend you do. They are incredible sessions. I'll put the link below so that way you can sign up for one or just get more information. But essentially through this time with him and going through this story work, I began to learn that I was hurt by 3 different people at the church that I was attending. And I never did anything about it. I never went to them and tried to resolve it. I never went to them and tried to have a conversation like, hey, I'm hurt. And I knew deep down that I was hurt. This wasn't like oh, I just realized that they hurt me kind of thing. It's like in the moment I knew I was hurt, I was disappointed, I felt neglected, whatever it may be, and I never went to them and had a conversation. And so it built in me and grew and grew and grew until it began to outwardly express itself in me feeling like I don't belong at my church anymore. You see, men have a tendency to really just push things down rather than deal with them. And story work makes you deal with those things. It was the mere fact that I learned that I was hurt, which is what healed me, that actually set me free from believing that I don't belong in my community. And so I went back to my church that following Sunday, and it was the first time in years that I actually felt like I belonged there. It turns out it was never the church's problem. It was never the leaders. It was never the programs. It was never the direction we were going in. It was never my friends leaving. It was me. I was the problem. And you know what? It almost popped in my life again just this last weekend. I was hurt by one of the leaders. And when I walked into the building, I could feel myself tense up and feel like I don't belong there. But I got free from this. So it kind of just was like a red flag. Like, what is going on? What's happening right now? And as I looked more deeply into it, I realized, oh, I'm hurt by this person. I haven't resolved it, and I'm taking it out on them, and it's making me want to pull away. See, this is another story I tell myself, that if I don't know how to fix a problem emotionally with someone, that I will lose connection with them. And so to save myself from that, I just pull away entirely. This is one I'm currently working through, but I was able to recognize it and process it out and actually deal with the issue within my heart before ever even going up to them. So I was able to reassure myself that I do belong here. I'm just hurt. And then after the service, I went up to them and I was like, hey, I was disappointed, I was hurt, and the issue was completely resolved, and it's restored the relationship that I was actually pulling away from. So I want to ask you a question. If you're feeling like you don't belong somewhere, or you feeling like you have church hurt, which typically comes from a person or a leader, right? What are you doing about it? Are you reinforcing it by going to everyone that agrees with you, that you are in the right, that everyone else is to blame? They're the villain of your story and you're the victim. The reality is you might be the victim, but that still doesn't give you the right to do nothing about it and not pursue any form of healing of your heart. I would highly recommend checking out Storywork. There's tons of books that go into it. You can watch the movie The Work. They demonstrate it in some capacity, but I would highly recommend checking out some of Jake Hamilton's stuff online. Like I said, I'll link it below so you can find it easily. I really just want to encourage you. If you're going through some pain, if you're going through some hurt, go after it. Get healed. It will literally change how you see the world. Hey, thanks so much for joining on my channel. If you enjoyed this, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It really does help the channel. Again, I really appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next video.